upper mid budget on this. We have a savior. We have a really decent helm. We have a cyclone armor, but it's good enough. We have a yoke. We have a decent amethyst ring, shitty taming, super mediocre shield, some Ralakesh, an orange with a corruption, and terrible gloves. Got an okay tincture, good flasks. So we're like, I didn't mean to click on that portal. We're like upper mid budget on this somewhere. Let's run a T17. Enfeeble sucks. Elemental resistances suck. Bloodstained Saw Blades could be bad. Let's see how it does in a T17 though. Not a lot of buttons here. You'll need to Enduring Cry once to get your endurance charges up, and then they'll just sustain from blocking. So you're gonna get hit. If you're not getting hit, you don't need endurance charges anyway. Clear on Smite is obviously good. Blood Rage refreshes itself on any kills, so you don't have to worry about keeping Blood Rage up. We're only punishing bosses, so you don't need to use punishment in here. And then you've got Ball Smite for big screen clears, as well as a higher flat lightning aura, which gets triple scaling off of our savior. Now bossing, let's see how we do. So get your Ball Smite out, get your tincture up, make sure your flasks are up, make sure Blood Rage is up. That's really not bad. T17 bosses with a whole bunch of bad affixes. We do need to kill these things, but we'll accidentally kill bosses at the same time. That's okay. Saw blades hurt. Keep your smite and your blood rage up. Your ball smite. Who's left? There you go, Chaperone. Sub 50% melts. Very tanky. I mean, we're just face tanking basically everything except for puddles. And boss is dead. Very nice. I think this is definitely going to be a great option for Slayer. Alright, let's go over our POB. We have this set up with an early budget, a mid budget, and a high budget. The early budget is kind of somewhere in the yellow to red map range. I will include a cheaper version for entry into maps, as well as some leveling in here. But for now, we'll go over early budget, which would be yellow to red maps getting here. So from an item perspective, we are using a Rebuke of the Vol. This is a T3 unique, fairly common, usually 1 to 5 chaos to get a hold of. If you don't know how to get chaos early in the game, come by Twitch. I'm happy to answer that question, but you have access to Heist, you have access to lab farming, you have access to just generic map farming, a lot of options. But this will be your first item to get. We want items, and I have all these set up with 3 useful affixes and 1 benchcraft. So if you got more than that, that's fine, but it's just 3 useful affixes. We want block, we want spell suppression, we want life. We want armor and life, and we want resistances. Armor, life, resistances, and benchcrafting spell suppression. We have gloves that we just want armor, life, and resistances, and we're going to benchcraft on a fizz conversion. Pair of dark ray vectors, usually 1 to 2 chaos. Carnage hearts, usually 1 to 2 chaos. Amethyst rings with just life and resistances, and then a magnate studded belt. Fairly simple gearing. We're running a silver flask, a granite flask, a jade flask, and a tincture that has elemental penetration on it. In the early budget, we're doing about 2.8 million DPS without a tincture. We're doing about 4.3 million with a tincture, so really solid clear DPS for the build. We do have 1 non-vol strikes on the character right now, but ideally we're going to get 2 more on our gloves later on. But we'll go over to the mid budget right here. Not a lot of changes. We just added affixes to different items. and we added a little bit of implicits to our items. We picked up a Paradoxica. If you can afford it, you can get a Savior first instead. Paradoxica is usually cheaper than a Savior is. We do have Ralakesh. Endurance charge Ralakeshes should be the cheapest ones. I think Frenzy charges are what are going to be the most expensive ones. But if they are pricey, Ralakesh and Arns come as a package. So don't upgrade one until you have the other. We're still using a Carnage Heart because it's just a solid choice. But we did anoint Crystal Skin because one of the big key points in the mid budget is that we are now ailment immune, and that is huge for us. And then we have another Amethyst Ring. This one just has some additional offensive stats on it. That could be Flat Lightning or Flat Fire, Flat Cold, or increased elemental damage with attack skills. Doesn't matter which one it is, just pick one. In this version of the budget, we're doing at 15 million DPS with no Tincture. We're doing at 22 million DPS with our Tincture up. And then we do have Eye Jewels with accuracy and elemental damage on it. And we added a Cluster Jewel with an Interrogation. Interrogation is usually one div a piece. These are also farmable. All you have to do is run some Delirious maps, fairly simple. And then we have a Lethal Pride. The only thing that the Lethal Pride is critical for is Rage on Hit, because it saves us 1-2 skill points to get to Rage on Hit right here. So get a Lethal Pride with Rage on Hit. If it's got other useful stuff on it, that's awesome. It's attack damage, leech, it's got Warcry buff effect, no one cares. Armor is nice, crit multi is nice, but the one Rage on Hit is what you're looking for on your Lethal Pride. On all of my guides, if you click Find Timeless Jewel down here, you'll see that we have the nodes in here already that are needed to set the build up, and you just hit search and you buy something from this list. Everything on this list is good. The ones at the bottom of the list are better than the ones at the, or worse than the ones at the top of the list. Just get one of them, they all work. And then in our high budget build, we have switched over to a Savior. We have mostly flawless crafted gear. We've only got to do 1, 2, 3 pieces that we craft on. So this is a recom craft, this is a recom craft, this is a fractured craft, and then this is a fractured craft. So like the shield, I have a guide on YouTube for recomming the shield. That guide applies to also recomming your armor. The gloves, you want to get temple mod gloves, harvest, reroll chilled enemies until you get 50% chilled enemies. You just roll back and forth cold and fire until you hit 50% against chilled enemies. And then you need to fracture that. If you don't fracture it, you rinse, repeat, and then you scour it down, and then you just craft on it. There's a lot of different ways to craft it. Harvest crafting works. Just essence crafting works. A lot of different ways. These gauntlets are easy to craft. And then the ring, same thing. You're going to want to fracture off elemental damage with attack skills, and then essence slam crit multi until you have an open suffix and a couple of good prefixes. You could also essence craft, or that's your only option, is essence craft crit multi. Everything else does not work. Now, if you get the int and an open suffix, you can then craft prefixes with suffixes cannot be changed. Fairly straightforward. We're running Arns with corruption, a taming, a yoke with interrogation. Ralakesh goes with Arns, and then a replica abyssus for a huge boost to our damage. It's almost 9 million DPS out of this helm. The socketed skill gems get a cost and reservation modifier corruption on there is actually not necessary. We'll pull that off. And so that'll put you at around 27 million DPS. That's a lie. That'll put you around 162 million DPS with 253 million DPS with your tincture. So you're looking at early budget is 2.8 million, mid budget is 15 million, and then the high budget in-game stuff is 162 million. Very, very solid numbers. The high budget is also running a Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flesh with more than skill, getting 88% block and spell block, along with the life recovery from a Shaper Shield, giving them effectively infinite health pull, and great fizz and elemental max hits. So there's our itemization on the build. As far as skills go, they're mostly unchanged as you level up. You're running a Smite, you're running Shield Charge, you're running Precision with Arrogance, Assassin's Mark with Mark on Hit, Enduring Cry for endurance charges when you're not getting hit. Block gives you endurance charges when you're blocking and getting hit. Blood Rage with Frost Blink is a secondary movement skill. Cast when damage taken, Molten Shell with more duration. And Anger, Flesh and Stone, and Tempest Shield as our R's. In the mid-budget, very similar setup. running everything exactly the same way as we were before. And then in the high budget, we are running Enlighten on Anger, Summon Scatterbots, and Flesh and Stone. And that allows us to run... that allows us longer uptime on our Tincture, which is more higher DPS, especially versus bosses. So Enlighten is good for getting that extra mana reservation. Outside of that, we added a Vol Haste, so we have an additional cooldown in here. Assassin's Mark, Mark on Hit, Precision, Arrogance, Shield Charge. No changes here. For our passive tree, the passive trees are relatively similar. Our early budget passive tree passes through here and gets non-ball strikes, gets additional damage against ignited enemies, but is specifically precise technique. So keep an eye on your accuracy, keep it above your total life. Use your Weathered Hunter wheel right here to manage all of your accuracy needs. After that, we go down here and we get Block Mastery here and Shield Mastery here. We run Versatile Combatant, and we pick up life everywhere that we can pick up life on the tree, because life is very important. We go up here and we're taking Frenzy Charge and Frenzy Charge, so we have max Frenzy Charges. We are getting Inversion tied to Forces of Nature, and we're getting Evasion Mastery with Revenge of the Hunted. This gets us to 100% spell suppression in our early budget. A very, very solid defense. 200k effective health pool is amazing. Without Molten Shell, we are at 145k effective health pool. On our mid-budget, the tree is a little bit different because we dropped Precise Technique. We do need to pick up a little bit of reservation, again, for our additional mana that we need in order to have a higher uptime on our Tincture. We pick up Cloth and Chain down here. We add our Cluster Jewel, which is a Feed the Fury Martial Prowess Calamitous, and Interrogation for Secrets and Suffering. We do pick up Bleeding Mastery for the additional crit there. And then everything else up here is mostly the same. Mark Mastery with 10% increased chance to get a Frenzy Charge is standard on all of them. The high budget, not a whole lot of changes. We do add an Intuitive Leap Jewel here to pick up some skill points so that after levels we have enough to add a second cluster. The second cluster gives us access to Forbidden Flesh, Forbidden Jewel. We're running a Martial Prowess and Feed the Fury Cluster Jewel up here as well. The build itself, I think, is going to be really solid. Like, it is absolutely fun to play. It's very good clear. It is very good single target DPS. You can see we have some configurations in here that we get to these numbers. We have 3 smites because we're running reflections off of Savior. So it's us plus 2 mirages all attacking at the same time. And then we have a Vol Smite here and an area hits here. Whenever a target gets hit with Smite directly, either by your attack or a non-Vol strike, they take 1 hit. Then it explodes an area around them where they also take an area hit. If you have 2 targets standing together, they both get 4 hits because they both get 3 hits because they both get a melee hit, and then they both get 2 area hits. If you have 3 targets standing very close together and you have enough non-ball strikes, that will continue. So that makes the clear on the build very, very solid, and it's actually surprisingly good against multi-boss fights if you can get those bosses to stack up a little bit. Now, if you have any questions over the build, drop a comment down below or come by Twitch. I'm happy to answer them. I know a lot of these builds are a little complex, and I kind of focus on making good tanky builds for newer players. So please don't hesitate to come by and ask questions. I'm happy to answer them. Thank y'all very much for watching. Enjoy. Peace.